Welcome back, listeners, to a very, very interesting episode on the BizBlend podcast, where business meets balance and hustle meets heart, and success is redefined from the inside out. I'm your host, Sana, and today we are stepping into a space that often goes unnoticed in this hustle of entrepreneurship: silence. Now, our guest is someone who understands that real transformation, listeners, whether it's in life or leadership or community. Transformation often begins in the quietest of places. Listeners, meet Ana Megrelishvili. She is the powerhouse founder of Christian Professionals Network Worldwide, and her journey from childhood hunger and hardship in Russia to becoming an MBA graduate, global community builder, and best-selling author is beyond inspiring. But what I love most about Anna is how she integrates faith, service, and stillness to foster what she calls relational abundance, healing the deeper poverty that often goes unseen. And today, on this episode of BizBlend, we'll be exploring how practices like silent retreats can be tools not just for personal recharging, but for radically transforming the way we lead and serve. So, with that, Anna, welcome to the show, and it is such an honor to have you with us.
Hi, Sana. Thank you so much for such a beautiful introduction. It's an honor to be on your show, and I'm excited to share my experience with your listeners.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Anna, for your kind words. And before we talk about the topic, I think most of our listeners will think so. Um, Business, I mean, it mostly involves people who are high achievers, high performers. We are founders, leaders who are constantly in that hamster's wheel to think and deliver. So getting them into silent retreats, it's like, it will be difficult. So, how exactly it is possible? How exactly silent retreats can help in understanding themselves inside out?
Absolutely. As founders, as somebody who leads organizations, or even if you're, don't have your own business, you know how this world now demands our constant attention and availability because we're reachable by cell phones all the time. People expect quick responses. And so that takes a lot of energy from us that we don't even realize. And we're exhausted all the time. And like you said, we're in that hamster wheel and don't even realize it. And so to me, silent retreats is almost like taking a pause to go away, be disconnected from the world, be in silence and recenter yourself and check in and see, am I doing what's important right now, and get answers to some of the questions that you might be pondering about. And in today's world we operate with calendars, and so silent retreats is just became part of my living. So I take two silent retreats per year, and like anything else, I schedule them way in advance. They go onto my calendar. And this way, this is the dedicated time that nothing else can be scheduled on. And, I really dedicate how fast my business has been growing and evolving to the practice of silent retreats. I think you can get toward your goal, from point A to point B in multiple ways, right? But the straight shot is the fastest way to achieve your goals. And so silent retreats really can help you stop meandering and maybe getting sidetracks in your decision making for your business, and really figure out what's the fastest and most direct way to get me from my point A goal to point B, without taking all the side tours.
Wow, that really sounds very, very interesting, beautiful. We'll dive deep into this conversation, but before that, Anna, let's talk about your journey as well. I mean, it's full of chaos, pain, transformation. I mean, humble beginnings and then uh, to becoming an MBA graduate and a global community builder. Really inspiring. So, uh, out of all this, what role has stillness or silence played in your leadership journey,
Mhm.
probably healing journey?
Yes. So one thing I want to mention here is that this practice has been part of my life for the past 3 years. So in the past 2.5 years, I've gone on 7 silent retreats. But before then, I was part of that hamster wheel. I came to the US with an aspiration to build a better future for myself, to achieve the American dream, so to say, and really, wealth acquisition became my primary motivator. So I had a successful corporate sales career where I earned a lot of money, but yet I was very unhappy and I always felt like something was missing. And I tried to fill that hole with just things like buying more expensive things or going on fancy vacation. And, you get this initial dopamine hit when you get this new thing or you go to this next vacation destination. But all of that is really fleeing because once the dopamine hit goes away, you're left with that hole in your heart still. And so then you kind of go on this cycle where you continue to try to fill it. But the true joy and happiness doesn't really come from external things or buying things. And that's a mistake that a lot of us make. It's very, very common and I see it all the time. But really, the joy comes from having a purpose and really living in your purpose. And I really attribute finding my purpose on this planet through the practice of a silent retreat. It didn't start off this way, though. When I first went to a silent retreat, it was more of a challenging myself kind of moment. So I always like to experience new things. I like to grow. And I thought it would be very challenging to see if I could do this. 5 days of no talking, no cell phone, no connection to outside world, and see if I could do it. Well, next thing I know, I actually wrote my first book in 2 days at a silent retreat. Not something I ever aspired to do or thought I would be an author, but allowing that time for an introspection have brought a lot of healing. So, like you mentioned, I come from very tumultuous upbringing in Russia, very dysfunctional family, lots of abuse that I have experienced. But you know, all of that leaves a mark on your personality, on your life, on your just who you are as a person. And writing that book has brought a lot of healing. And I don't think I would ever have been able to do it if not for that really alone time and introspection during that first silent retreat. And my second silent retreat was also very significant. So the first two have really shaped who I am today and what I do today. During my second silent retreat is when I actually received a vision of everything that I'm doing today with the Christian Professionals Network worldwide. So it almost was like this business plan that I received and an idea that was born during a silent retreat that I'm now implementing. And I found my purpose and I live in my purpose now. And so you hear that sometimes is when you achieve and work in your purpose, you feel like you're not working. And that's truly the case. And I wish more people would get to experience that.
That is beautiful. That is really beautiful. It's like, you're blending spirituality and strategy. So
Exactly.
not like all about spirituality, but there is a strategy. There is a roadmap here.
Absolutely. And, it doesn't matter. I'm a Christian, obviously. So, I practice Christian faith. And so when I go on my silent retreat, I do a lot of reading of the Bible and journaling and praying and meditating. But even if you don't believe in anything, I highly recommend a practice of silent retreats because it will allow you to have a lot of introspection. We today don't get a lot of time where we just sit in quiet and stillness and not constantly bombarded by everything that's going on in the world, right? Like if we're doing things, we often have TV on the background or music or something that's, the noise of the bustling city if you live in the big city. Going
Yep.
away into quietness, that's for some of us, there's just like a new experience and it's a challenging experience having all this time to be with yourself. And for many of us, this is the first time we go somewhere and really nothing is expected of us. All that is expected is to be in quiet reflection, in active rest. I truly think that silent retreats are like a practice of active rest. Because when I leave them, even after 5 days, I feel like I was on a month-long vacation. It's just this peace that comes, this just reflection and really detoxing from the day-to-day busyness just really replenishes you.
And then one point which I can completely relate to is for the first timers, it can be really really challenging. If I were to go for this for the first time, the first question would come to my mind: how I'm going to spend the whole day without a single sound out there, no device, no as nothing. How I'm going to spend my day, my night there. So of course, in such scenarios, how exactly, I mean, do you guide them to start with? Because there will be a lot of, hesitation towards this.
Right. I get it. Yeah. So let me tell you a little bit how the experiences are. And I'm asked other people who have gone on silent retreats um, after me to see if they have similar experiences, and they all kind of follow similar pattern. So, when you first arrive to a silent retreat, what you will experience, what I call it, is digital detox and the world detox day. So, this will last about a day to a day and a half. So, what ends up happening when we are in our everyday lives, when we go outside, when we deal even with our family members, we're really carrying this armor. The armor is how the world sees us and how we behave in the world. And we don't even realize how heavy that armor is until we put it down. And this is all metaphorically speaking, at a silent retreat. Because when you walk into that room, you'll have your private room, your private bathroom. For the first time in your life, you are not dependent on anybody and nobody's dependent on you. So in many of the retreat centers, they provide food for you at predetermined times. So you don't have to worry about cooking or how I'm going to feed myself. It's really about being within yourself and just reflecting. So first day, I kid you not, sometimes I have slept 16 hours nonstop. And this is because of, as a founder, I have made so much time just dealing with people and making decisions. And suddenly I can put it all behind me. And so I spend the first day pretty much in bed. Even when I'm awake, I'm still physically so tired. It feels like I've been working in the field all day. And that's unexplainable, but that happens to pretty much everybody I've talked to. It's just this really heaviness that you have to go through. And really, after about a day, day and a half, is when you completely detox and you almost become like this vessel that's ready to receive information and reflect and make decisions. And it's really on the like that second and third and fourth day where you are able to start receiving information if you believe in God or, higher power. because we are connected to them, and it's just we don't slow down to hear them. And so the silent retreat becomes this opportunity for you to be able to tap into that wisdom that is always available for us. I always take a journal, so I highly recommend for all of you to take a journal and write down thoughts that come up, feelings that come up. Every silent retreat is going to be completely different. I've talked about my first two silent retreats, and they were really incredible and somewhat supernatural a little bit, because it felt like I was really connecting with God, and He was giving me these um, just divine downloads during this time. But I've also had a retreat where I had a memory that came up that I was processing from my childhood. And so it was more about healing. And I've had a retreat when I made decisions about my business completely opposite of what I was going to do, like completely opposite. So I was going in one direction, and then I received a different direction in my silent retreat, and I changed the business strategy, and it led me to incredible results. And then I've had some where it was really nothing as far as healing or moving forward, but it was more about growing myself as a leader. So it was more about my character and asking forgiveness from people I've hurt in the past. So it was more reflection of who I am in that moment.
Mm. And also, practically um, thinking into this, everybody, they'll have their own separate healing journey, different healing journey. Uh, and it can be maybe, due to a traumatic event as well,
Mhm.
perspective of their professional role or background. So when they're completely alone, in silence, they may have, they may experience different emotions. Um, maybe a lot of frustration or sadness, or they could cry. So in such cases, I'm very sure there will be people who take care of that, because sometimes it can be really, really personally daunting, that to experience those sudden outbursts of feelings.
Yes. So, when you go on silent retreats, it is completely optional for you to participate in programming, such as if you go to a Catholic monastery, they have mass that you can attend, or you can choose not to attend. They also have spiritual advisors present in the retreat. So it is again up to you if you want to have a daily meeting with them and discuss what's coming up during your retreat, or you choose not to. That's the beauty of the spiritual retreats and silent retreats, is that it is completely your choice how you want to spend the day. And for many of us, that's really the only time in our time that we can do it.
Hmm. Yep. Okay. And something which I really found very new while I was going through intro. You speak so powerfully about relational poverty.
Mhm.
Uh, exactly is this, and do you find that intentional silence helps people reconnect not just with themselves but with others in more authentic, more humanized way?
Yes. So, what relational poverty means is a lack of genuine connections in someone's lives. And this is something that's happening, especially in the Western world. So, Western Europe and the United States, it's becoming more and more prevalent where people are isolated. And currently, based on the last survey that was actually done pre COVID, so I'm sure it's going to be worse now. One in five Americans, when surveyed, said that they feel lonely and isolated. And so it has a lot of impact on our psyche. So It is loss of productivity. It is people are on anti-anxiety and anti-depression medication. This is relational poverty is the number one reason why people become homeless. And so this is a very, very serious problem. And the older we get, the harder it becomes to connect with new people and make those genuine connections. And so, when you go on silent retreats, when you heal yourself, what comes out of it is also healed relationship with others. So many times when people are relationally poor, it's because there is some sort of conflict within a family, or they, cut bridges and ties with their friends. They might have some sort of addiction problem that's causing loss of relationships in their lives. Well, when you go on silent retreats, it gives you a lot of reflection and healing. And like I mentioned, like one of the retreats I had, it was very interesting. I had this situation where I actually quit my corporate job about probably 5 years ago. And, I gave them a 2 week notice, but I could have given them more at that time. But I chose not to because at that point I was hurt and I was going through personal things. So during one of my silent retreats, I actually received almost like an insight on how much I have hurt that business. It was a small family business. By quitting so abruptly, how it affected them negatively, that I had no idea. And suddenly I get this insight during this retreat. And so 5 years later, I reach out to the owners of the organization and I tell them, and I take responsibility over my action, and I say, I apologize for the disruption that I have caused in your business. I was hurt. It's not an excuse, but I want you to understand it was nothing personal. I was going through my own things at that time. And so it allowed me to, apologize for the part that I have played. Now, this is just an example of work, but imagine if you have something like this with a family member who you have hurt. And suddenly there's that bridge that you are rebuilding and you're fixing that relational poverty through taking accountability for your action. Or if a family member who hurt you, suddenly you're able to process those feelings and achieve forgiveness toward that person. Again, that's also a possibility of rebuilding that relationship that was broken before.
That is such a great example. I mean, it's really humbling itself in itself because this doesn't happen a lot of times that we kind of take accountability and we're self aware that it was me who did the mistake, maybe not intentionally, but I apologize that I hurt you in some way or the other. And and similarly, I think for ourselves as well, because a lot of our frustration stems from self judgment, or not having that self compassion. We may not forgive ourselves for the mistakes we did in the past, or for a decision that we took in the past, and it changed our whole lives. So I guess silent retreat is a really, really such an effective way to do a lot of self introspection. And can people do journaling during these retreats, like journaling or reading books, something like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely recommend journaling because you want to remember later on some of the thoughts and feelings that came through it and go back to that. And yes, I recommend books, but I recommend more spiritual books about whatever topic you go. Don't take like, a fiction book that will allow you to escape the reality. You can take books that will allow you to go deeper and reflect deeper onto whatever topic you want to go further, whether it's relationship or if it's a business. You can do both. And one of the things I want to say here, I think silent retreat is a fast track tool to achieve healing or achieve introspection or making a decision. You can still do the same thing, obviously, by going to therapy or going to business coaches or making, business decisions that might or might not be right. But silent retreats is really just condensing all that time in a short period of time. And so one of the most common comment that I receive is from people who say, "I don't have time to go
Yes.
on a silent retreat." And to that, I say, I think I don't have not to go to a silent retreat because it just expedites things so much. I'll just give you an example of my own business. Where I am today, what I thought originally this will be in 5 years, okay? Where I will be, and where I achieved it in about 2 years. So it expedited my business significantly because, like I said, I was getting ready to make a significant business decision about expanding my organization. And suddenly, during a silent retreat, I received a message that now is not the time for expansion, and instead we started a nonprofit that associated with our business as well, and that allowed us to not only just boost our business but start making incredible impact on our city in solving homelessness in Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm currently located. So again, I highly recommend. And the way to get started, just practically, I was really surprised how many places offer silent retreats. So you can just Google, silent retreat centers, and you would be amazed how many there will be. They're everywhere. Some of them operate on donation basis, meaning you pay what you can afford. So there's very cost effective options out there.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned that, the most common kind of resistance to silent retreat is the time here. And apart from that, I believe there must be a resistance here that, oh my goodness, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days silent retreat. I'll miss a lot of work. What if somebody needs me? What if something happens and I'm not there? So there will be some prerequisites before getting into or embracing the silent retreat. So do you have any kind of specific prerequisites, especially for entrepreneurs, founders, because and solopreneurs as well, because it's like
Mhm.
if they're not there, then they'll have that FOMO that the whole thing will crumble out in during those days.
Right. So think about this. If you were suddenly put in a hospital for 5 days, what would happen to your business? The same logic applies here. This is a spiritual health retreat for you. So think of it as something that's really necessary to heal yourself, to provide the necessary wisdom and guidance that you need for your business. So you organize it like anything that's urgent. Like if you had sudden death in your family, what would you do? Same logic applies here. So I plan ahead of time. It's on my calendar for events that happen during that time. I have a person who is responsible. I give them, if there's an emergency, here is the login information, and there is an emergency phone number, whatever you go to the retreat. So if there's a true emergency, people would still be able to get a hold of you. You just provide that telephone number to them. So anything that you come off as it's just an excuse. You make time for what's important to you. Now, silent retreats are important to me. Everybody in my life, in my personal and work life, knows that I go on 2 silent retreats per year, and they know that during that time, this is how the business is going to run. That I am going to be unavailable, and they have to solve their own problems. You would be amazed how creative your employees and people you work with suddenly become when they cannot reach you and they have to solve their own problems. Magically, they all are able to solve their problems. And so I actually challenge you to see how your business will operate without you. Because if your business cannot operate without you in it, that means you are a worker and not an owner of your business. And that's a common mistake that all of us make as entrepreneurs. And so we need as fast as possible to get to the point where our business operates, whether we're there or not.
Lovely, lovely, Anna. So before we wrap up, if our listeners would like to connect with you and also uh, explore more about the silent retreats and also your work at Christian Professionals Network Worldwide, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so all of the information about the work of Christian professionals, as well as my personal information about my book, can be found on our website, and it is cpnworldwide.com.
Hmm. I'll make sure to have all the links mentioned in the show notes. Anna, and thank you. Thank you so, so much for introducing all of us to the beauty of silent retreats, the beauty of stillness and silence in today's ultra chaotic world. And of course, your journey is really, really inspiring because I think it's definitely reminder that stillness is not the absence of motion. It's basically the birthplace of meaning because there are a lot of misconceptions around stillness or just taking a pause or uh, just being silent, even as a leader. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And to all of my listeners out there, if you're navigating business, you are navigating burnout or spiritual disconnection or disconnection from yourselves overall, your story, your or Anna's story and the silent retreats and the experiences she shared with us today, they offer both a practical model and a spiritual nudge. And if you are curious about silent retreats, consider this as your sign, not to escape, but to expand. In that silence, your purpose may just speak the loudest to you. So don't forget to check out the show notes along with this episode to connect with Anna and learn more about her incredible work at CPNW and also her books, which is especially Finding Courage to Change, and also, of course, the Silent Retreats. Until next time, this is BizBlend, where we honor both the business we build and the life we lead while building it. So stay centered, stay grounded, but stay curious. Thank you.